So I've been shooting film for a few years now, and I've used labs to process and scan my film the whole time. It's a pretty simple and handy process, as a lot of you probably know. You post off your negatives, get your scans back a few days later, get your negatives sent back in the post a few days later, and you're good to go. I use a lab called Take It Easy in the UK, which is actually pretty appropriate, seeing as I literally say that every video. But the scans I get back, I pretty much always love how they look. I make a few little tweaks in Lightroom, but the scans that I get back are really close to how I want my final photos to look, so it's pretty easy. But I do watch a lot of other film photographers here on YouTube, and I do see them scanning their own film, and I do feel like it's a step in the process that I'm kind of missing out on. It looks like a pretty satisfying process, and I think with film, you're already choosing to be a bit more hands-on with the process of taking a photo. There's a bit more to it, so I think getting involved even more with the scanning and being able to tweak things to get the perfect result that you want is something that I kind of wanted to try. As I said there, it does look satisfying, but it also kind of makes me a little bit anxious watching people making their film scanning setup with the copy stand and having to make sure things are perfectly level with mirrors and levels and stuff. Yeah. That stresses me out a little bit watching that, because I know how hard it probably is to get things perfect and not have your scans out of focus and stuff like that. And that kind of put me off a little bit when I started looking into it. But then I came across this film scanning setup from JJC, which pretty much allows you to avoid all that tricky setup, because this entire thing attaches directly onto your lens with a few adapters so you can fill your frame with the negative depending on whatever macro lens setup you have. As you can see, it's quite a simple process putting this thing together, and it comes with its own light, which is just really nice and pretty handy. By the way, I've not been paid by JJC to use this or talk about it in a video. I just sent them a quick email saying I was thinking about trying my own film scanning, and I seen their kit and they very kindly sent it over to me, said try it out and share your thoughts on it in a video if you want. So I'll be completely honest in this video with what I think of this film scanning setup. I thought this would be all plasticky, but actually all these adapters are fully metal, which I didn't expect, so that's nice. The holder and everything else is plastic though, but it feels okay. So once things are put together, you just need to take a strip of your film and put it into this film holder. This bit is a little fiddly, to be honest, and you want to be a little careful, because I feel like closing this down if the film isn't sitting in perfectly would probably scrape or potentially damage your negatives. Once it's in though, you're pretty much good to go, and you just need to slide the film holder in front of the light. For my scanning setup, I'm using my Fuji X-T3, which I'm filming on right now, as well as this TT Artisan 40mm f2.8, I think? Yes, f2.8 macro lens. I actually reached out to TT Artisan as well, telling them I was looking to make my little film scanning setup. They had a macro lens that I seen, and they very kindly sent this over to me as well for the setup, said try it out, and this should work pretty perfectly for this setup. There is a list of lenses that the JJC kit says will work with it. This isn't on it, but it works perfectly, and the scanning setup actually screws straight onto this lens without the need for any adapters, which is really handy. This thing is really heavy, fully metal too, by the way. It's a manual lens, but it feels like a really great piece of kit actually. But yeah, this should work pretty perfectly for this setup, I think. After playing around with the adapters for a minute, trying to line up my negative, and then realizing I actually don't need any for this lens, which is handy, I am now able to almost totally fill the frame with the negative at a ratio of 1 to 1.5. All that macro stuff is honestly a little confusing, but because I'm using a Fuji, which is APS-C sensor, from what I understand, 1 to 1 doesn't really work because of the sensor size, but 1 to 1.5 is fine, I believe. But anyway, now I just need to focus on the negative. This lens is fully manual, so I used the peaking to make sure that things are in focus, then set the camera to f8. And also adjust my shutter to get the exposure right. I've only used this on a few negatives properly so far, but I think exposing at about +1 seems to work best to get the most details from the negative. But feel free to play around with this yourself. Here are the first few scans that I did. They look fine in the viewfinder and even when importing into Lightroom. But after converting things using just the curves tab and white balance and stuff in Lightroom, I noticed two of the corners were a lot brighter than the rest of the image. I did end up trying out Negative Lab Pro to convert my scans, by the way. I'll talk about that in a sec. After a lot of playing around and comparing this scan to my original lab scan, I was actually able to get things quite close with just the curves and Lightroom settings, but the corners were still a bit too bright. So I decided to move the film holder to the slot that was closer to the light. I'm not sure exactly why there is two or which one you're supposed to use, but this definitely helped. The scan after doing this now looks like this. Still a little bright in the bottom corners, but a lot better. I also tried putting the film holder back where I originally had it, right in front of the lens, and then used the diffuser that comes with this kit. I put that behind it and then just sat it in front of my big softbox, and those results have been actually the best so far. I'm not sure exactly where the light was reflecting or coming in at on those first scans to make the corners bright. It's something I need to play around with, but yeah, this setup with the softbox and the diffuser seemed to give me the best results so far. So after trying to convert things by inverting curves and stuff in Lightroom, I decided to try the most popular option for converting your negatives, which is the Negative Lab Pro plugin for Lightroom. I downloaded the trial version of Negative Lab Pro, which I think has literally all of the same options as the normal version. It just limits how many files you can actually use it on. But straight away, results were much better. Yes, there's a few little tweaks that I'll probably make going forward, but straight away the results were way better than inverting curves and stuff, and a lot easier too. I'm not going to go into too much detail here because I've literally only used it for a few scans, but I just followed the process they recommend: white balancing, cropping, etc., and then converting the negatives. I made some subtle adjustments in the editing section, and these are the results that I got for these few photos. I wanted to try a few different styles of photos just for trial and error really, and for this being my first time using Negative Lab Pro, I'm pretty happy with how they all turned out. So as I've sort of touched on, the process was not without its issues. The bright corners or light leaks or whatever that was with those first scans, I need to play around with things and try and figure out what that was because I'm not quite sure. The last results, like I said, with the diffuser definitely helped that, so I'll probably use that going forward when I try and figure out what the issue was. The film holder, like I said, is a little bit flimsy. It isn't quite the smoothest thing to slide through as you're trying to line up your frames. They end up being a little wonky and stuff. It's not the end of the world, it just kind of slows you down, and sometimes you end up with your negatives being a little bit wonky, but that is easy to straighten in Lightroom. But yeah, it just slows things down a little bit and is a little bit annoying. The sharpness issue, I think, is either a me thing or a Fuji camera thing with Lightroom. Not totally sure yet. I don't think it's anything to do with the lens. Like I said, I was using focus peaking to focus on the scan. I tried focusing on the grain as well. That's a little bit tricky to do, but I use f8 +1 exposure and the lowest ISO possible, so I still need to experiment a little bit more with that, but the lab scans just look so much nicer in terms of sharpness. I have tried Iridian X, bringing the Fuji file into it and then converting it to a DNG, which definitely helps a lot, but it's a bit of an annoying process. So yeah, definitely something I need to do a bit of further testing on. So that's pretty much it for my first home film scanning setup. It took a little bit of playing around over the past couple of days, but to be honest, it didn't take too long before I was able to get results that I'm actually pretty happy with, minus the sharpness thing that might take a little bit more fiddling around. This JJC film scanning kit goes for around £70 to £75, I think it is, which is about $100 in and around, which is pretty decent actually compared to a lot of the other options out there. Some of them are really expensive. It might be a little bit slower than more expensive setups, but it does work. If any of you use Fujifilm cameras to scan your film, please give me some tips on the sharpening issue that I mentioned. If you want to drop a comment below or jump on the Discord and we can chat about things there, that would be much appreciated. But that's pretty much it for this one. Hopefully this was helpful in some way or other. If it was, maybe give the video a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and yeah, as we always say, take it easy, don't be a stranger.